Welcome back to Tiny TV. This week, it's Foo Fighters week. The band will release their brand new album, Medicine at Midnight, Friday, February 5th. And yes, it took me a long time to learn how to pronounce that correctly. And with me now, I have Chris, guitarist in the Foo Fighters. Chris, say hello to the world and welcome to Tiny TV.
Hey, how you doing? That sounded like a tongue twister.
Yeah, pretty much. When you're a Dane, you're used to speaking down here and not up there so much, you know?
Friday, February 5th.
Yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
First off, I want to know, man, what a time to be alive. Where are you right now and how are you doing?
I'm sitting at my kitchen table here in Los Angeles, and I'm doing good. Yeah. We've been, obviously we finished this record like a year ago, right around a year ago. So it's taken longer than most of them to get out, but it's great that it's finally coming out.
Well, I want to congratulate you on the new album. Perhaps a lot of people watching here, when they see this interview, they will have heard the 3 singles that are out and they will be waiting for Friday to come so they can hear the whole album. When you hear just the 3 singles, it's very different songs. So
Sure.
in your words, what is Medicine at Midnight? What kind of a Foo Fighter album is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3 singles that have come out so far are a pretty good example because it sort of runs the gamut of some of the harder rock and stuff and some sort of classic Foo Fightery sounding stuff, the sort of anthemic kind of thing that we tend to do, and then some of the more groove based kind of drum loops and that sort of thing, like you had on Shame Shame. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good cross section of the album as a whole.
The process of doing this album, how was it different from doing this one? Because when you did this, I did a 6-hour-long radio show about the Foo Fighters and really dug into the process of this album, And the new one, there is a lot of similarities, but also some huge differences. So how was it for you guys to record Medicine at Midnight compared to this one?
Yeah, it was. I mean, some things were the same producer, same engineer, a lot of the same sort of team. The environment was totally different because Concrete and Gold we made in a beautiful classic studio here in LA, where like Frank Sinatra used to cut records and legends like that. And then this new one we made in some clunky old house in Encino, but it was great, because you're just in a house instead of a studio, which was fun. As far as the process, it was pretty similar in that ever since we made Wasting Light, we kind of do a similar thing where we record a song at a time, instead of the more sort of the way that we used to make records was you would do all your drums in one sitting and then all your guitars and sort of piece it together like that. And nowadays, and it's been like this for a while. Like, I don't remember what year we made Wasting Light, but ever since then, pretty much it's been like, we do a song in its entirety pretty much, and then move on to the next. And so it just kind of works out that every song takes about a week. And I guess in terms of process, maybe the biggest difference with this new one is we didn't do a lot of like pre-production, or we didn't do any really. Dave made some demos, so we had some sort of references before we went in, but we would just kind of work it out in the studio and just kind of on the spot and get it going.
I listened to the album the whole day today, and I couldn't help but think that this made me want to dance. And it's a long time since I've heard a rock and roll record where I could really dance. And also, I noted by going back in the Foo Fighters story that this is actually the shortest album you ever made. It punches in at like 36 minutes. And then
Really?
I thought to myself when I listened to it, like, man, perhaps this is this is what the world needs right now, maybe. A short rock album that you can dance to.
Absolutely. I mean, the world has lost its attention span probably a long time ago. So yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to make like, a 3-hour epic. I like short records. It's funny you ask about that. Somebody mentioned that the other day when I was doing an interview, and I hadn't even really thought about that it was kind of short, only 9 songs, but I was listening to Alice Cooper's Love It to Death yesterday because Pat and I are gonna interview the original Alice Cooper band because it's the 50-year anniversary of Love It to Death, and I noticed that album, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, that's a 9-song record too. I was like, cool.
Yeah, but that also speaks to your punk rock background, you know. I mean, best punk rock records, it's like maximum 30 minutes, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. You know, no need to have fluff on there just to have it.
I've heard that you earlier spoke about some of your favorite Foo Fighters songs and that the song All My Life meant a great deal to you. If you should point to some songs on the new album, or perhaps something on the new album which you enjoyed in particular, perhaps even in the recording room, do you have some standout tracks on the new album that you like a lot?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, it's hard to pick. You know, Cloud Spotter was really fun to record, and really one of the more different sounding songs for us. And it was maybe, I don't know if it was exactly the last one, but it was definitely late in the process. Dave wrote that song. I think it might have been the last one. So that was like a fun little surprise nugget that just kind of got in under the wire at the end. And of course, the title track was super fun to record. I got to do that kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan homage guitar solo thing.
It's Stevie. I've been listening to it today, and I was like, that guitar reminds me of something, but I couldn't point my finger at exactly what it was.
You can point your finger at exactly what it is. It is Stevie Ray Vaughan, channeling, he's channeling Albert King or whatever, and I'm channeling him. So, yeah. That was fun to do. And then, some of the other ones like, Holding Poison or something, recording those are fun just because they're the more rockin' tunes.
Well, speaking of the great guitarists, a few months back, I interviewed Angus Young of AC/DC.
Really?
Yeah, that was such a pleasure. And we talked about his early life with rock and roll and sitting up at the night listening to bands like Led Zeppelin and Cream and all that stuff. And I got him to talk a bit about his first guitar amp and his first guitars. And he actually got them from his brother, Malcolm Young, who bought him this small Australian amplifier called the Phi Sonic, I think. And he said to me that, like, this is one of the greatest amplifier he ever owned. And it was like the building bricks for the AC/DC sound in the beginning.
Really?
Do you remember the first
interview
amps?
must have... Oh, yeah. I was going to say that interview must have sent people scrambling to find those things. I've never even heard of one of those amps.
It did. And actually, I mean, yeah, in my comments section, people were like, what was that amplifier? What was it?
Right.
And I really tried to listen. I was like, what is he saying? They're like, Phi Sonic. Ah, yeah, okay. I think it's a small Australian brand,
Interesting. Yeah, but it was Angus Young, so it sounded like rah, 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 rah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do remember my first guitars and amps and stuff because, I had older brothers. I mean, the whole reason I play guitar is because my older brothers played guitar and bass. And so there were guitars and amps and stuff around our house. And I remember early on, I would just play my brother Mike's guitars, and take he had an old Epiphone acoustic that I would take to my guitar lessons. And then when I got a guitar of my own, it was a Takamine copy of an Aria Pro 2, like Explorer Destroyer shape. It was this black, it was small. I was really young and it was small. I want to say it was maybe a short scale neck even. And I had that for a minute, but when I started playing in bands in high school, I pretty quickly in the 10th grade for my 15th birthday, I sold that Takamine. And I took the money I got from that, and then my mom kicked in a couple $100, and I bought an '82 Les Paul, what they called a Black Beauty, even though it really doesn't have much of anything to do with a real Black Beauty from the earlier period. But this '82 Black Beauty that a buddy of mine at school was selling, and I still have that guitar. I only had that guitar for a very long time. I mean, even that I used to take that guitar on the road when I first joined Foo Fighters, but now I just keep it in my closet at home.
Oh, so you still have it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And interestingly, Pat actually, and it's beat to hell because it was the only guitar I had, and I played it like every gig that I ever did from the time I was like 15 till I was like, probably 32 or something. And and so it's really worn out. And I'd swapped the pickups out, not realizing that era of Gibson pickups are actually kind of collectible, and those are long gone. But Pat Smear recently bought on Reverb or eBay or something the exact same guitar. It
Yeah.
blew my mind, and it was like it was perfect. Like if somebody had like bought it and like stuck it under their bed ever since 1982 or something. Not a scratch on it. It was exact. It was actually. It was in better. Pat's version of it is in better condition than that guitar was when I bought it in
Wow.
1986. Yeah, not a scratch on it. It was so bizarre. One of these days, I'm gonna have to steal that thing from him for sure. But as far as amps, I remember the first amp that I ever kind of used was just some really rickety practice amp that my brother had. I think it was maybe like a Premier or something. I don't even remember what it was, but it was some solid state goofy thing that didn't distort at all and was super clean and the worst, like so far away from what I wanted. I started playing guitar when I was like 11, and I wanted to sound like Randy Rhoads right off the bat, and that thing did not help. Um,
No, I can imagine.
And then a little later, when I started playing in bands in high school, my brother Mike had a Music Man full stack that, in hindsight, was actually pretty cool. But again, it didn't. I don't even think it had a master volume or anything. It didn't gain up. It was just super clean. So you'd have to put a pedal in front of it. And I used that for a few years until I got a Mesa Boogie. At some point in the late 80s, I got like a Mesa Boogie Mark III. And then my band started using that Music Man as our PA because we had two speaker cabs. And we got drunk at a party in Isla Vista that we played and just left it there and never went back.
Oh,
So
damn.
I know, unbelievable. Like I kick myself now, but what are you gonna do?
But I want to ask, because speaking to Angus Young, when he started speaking about the sound of these first amps and the first guitars that he had, he has like, I don't know if I should say a very clear memory of how they sounded, but definitely a clear feeling, like almost in his gut, that he could remember how it felt to make the noise that these amps were making. Is that
Right.
something that, well, common among guitarists, you think back to that, your original sound in a way?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I remember having that Music Man set up in my bedroom, and it had a built-in like tremolo feature. And I would just kick that on, it would just go wah 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 wah, and I would just like strum chords and play the stuff, and it would just kind of go wah 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 wah. And I'll never forget that, that feeling. But it's funny, when I got that Mesa Boogie, it was one of those weird, it was like I think it was a Mark III, and it had like the EQ graph thing on it, and it had all these pull knobs, and it was like a lot of knobs, and I didn't really know how to use it. And I just basically plugged in and just accepted what it sounded like. And I remember one time my band, this was like in around 1989, and my band opened up for Gene Loves Jezebel at some little club. And this was like Gene Loves Jezebel, maybe a few years removed from their big hit record. Um, and the guitar player, I wish I could remember who the guitar player was, because I remember he came over and he goes, "Hey man, check this out." And he just pulled a couple knobs out and made a couple of adjustments. And my guitar tone went from like to just raw, just like came alive. And I just looked at what he did and just quickly memorized it. And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you, dude. Like you just 100% changed my guitar tone forever." So whoever that guitar player was playing in Gene Loves Jezebel in around 1989, I thank you. Set me on a
Speaking a bit
different
about
course.
these old scenes, the back in the day, one thing that always fascinates me is when musicians break out of the punk rock DIY scene, like you and Dave have done yourselves with the bands you were in, Rat Pack, No Use for a Name, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, and of course Scream and Nirvana. There's always this DIY thing of doing it, and also I think sometimes it's easier to cope in difficult times when you've really tried to be down there in the underground. Today, in 2021, do you think that Dave and you still benefit from the knowledge that you got in those early years of the punk rock scene?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, for sure. I mean, the whole DIY thing is, I mean, it's never anybody's choice. You know,
No.
you just there's no way around it, because nobody was going to carry your amp for you or book your gig for you or drive your van for you or whatever. It's funny you talk about breaking out of the punk rock scene. I broke into the punk rock scene. I mean, when I was a kid, I was a heavy metal kid growing up. I was listening to all the classic rock, Iron Maiden and Ozzy and all. Grew up with listening to Sabbath and Aerosmith and everything. So where I grew up in California was just it wasn't like a teeny weeny small town, but it was small enough that there wasn't the only real kind of like live music scenes were punk rock bands and speed metal bands and that sort of thing. So you just kind of gravitated to it because that's what was the most popular thing and kind of all around. So, but regardless of genre, I think anybody that's been through, and most musicians have gone through some version of that, regardless of what kind of music they play. Because when you're starting out, it's all on you and your bandmates.
All the way from back then till now, I guess that one thing you still have as a musician, no matter which genre you play, is that you have this burning passion to come out and share your music, be it through recording things or playing live. And
That's called
obvious,
being a narcissist. I think that's called being a narcissist.
yes, exactly. Yeah, hey, I have a YouTube channel and I count clicks, and I'm just
Yeah,
like, yeah, they
of
like me a
course, of
lot.
course. Yeah, we're all counting clicks these days, bud.
Yeah, exactly. But I was thinking, like, because 2020 has been such a difficult year, obviously, for a lot of people all over the world, and also for the people that I love a lot, musicians. But if we should count out all the bad things that has happened during the corona pandemic, what good things have happened to you? Like throughout the year where you have sat in your little lockdown bubble thinking, man, yeah, this is actually nice and it wouldn't have happened without the corona pandemic. Is there any
Well,
such things?
oh yeah, I mean, without any hesitation, the best part of this whole thing has been getting to be home for such a long stretch of time. I mean, that has never, I've never had that in my adult life, especially in the years since I've had kids. My wife and I have three teenage boys, and they're doing online school, and we're all in this house where we live, like together, in a way that we've never gotten to be before. So that's for sure the biggest positive side to it. And I think when it became clear that there was no way around the fact that all our plans were getting canceled and postponed and everything, I think you just had to accept it and embrace it, I've to be honest, I've loved the break at home. It's been really good on a personal level.
Well, here for the end of the interview, because time is running short soon, I would like to know a bit about the future. You released your solo album, Hot Lessons, in 2019, and you are part of various side projects and obviously a big part of Foo Fighters as well. If you look into the future, what does it hold? What is your dreams for the future?
Well, the initial thing, of course, I just want to see touring come back so that we can actually go out and play these songs live for people and get back to doing what we do. Because I think, for a rock and roll band in 2021 or in the modern age, it's the touring side of it is the most important part of it, for a whole lot of reasons. And it's also the most fun. But so that's first things first. I don't know when that's going to come back. I don't think anybody really does, but it will at some point, and we'll be ready to go when it does. But I mean, you talk about like the time off. I've spent a lot of time off just kind of doinking around in my studio and writing songs and thinking about making another solo record, but I don't know when that's going to happen. It will at some point, but yeah, I don't know. It's there's once the world kind of gets back to some semblance of normality, I think that we're going to be so busy in Foo Fighter land that it's hard to imagine having a whole lot of time to do any other side projects or anything. So, we'll just hit it hard for a little while, and then at some point, I mean, it's hard to imagine like playing, because when I go out and do my own shows, it's like I'm playing in a little club, and people are we're all just kind of together, and it's hard to wrap my head around that coming back anytime soon, because of the pandemic and everything. So yeah, but it will at some point.
But maybe it will actually be that the first thing that you will do is play your solo performances, because they can be done, because it's at a small scale, instead of the big shows that you do with the Foo Fighters.
God, I hope not. I hope it's the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I mean, who knows? Yeah, I just think it's all guesswork. Like I think probably at some point, when Foo Fighters get back on the road, I would assume that it'll be in some kind of reduced capacity, socially distanced with all sorts of protocols and things. But, even that compared to nothing will still, I think, be pretty fun,
Definitely will. I'll cross my fingers that we will meet at a Foo Fighters or a solo show in the near or nearest possible future. Chris, thank you so much for joining me here on Tiny TV. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man. So you're in Denmark, right?
I'm in Denmark, Copenhagen, yeah.
Awesome. Well, say hello to my buddy Jesper, who's a drummer that I played with here in LA, who's Danish.
Yeah.
The coronavirus led to him, he couldn't work anymore. He's living here in LA, and he wound up having, I don't know if he officially got like deported exactly, but it was something close to it. So he's back in Denmark, man. If you run into him, tell him I said hello, because he's a great guy. And when you talk about sort of the impact of this whole thing it's one thing the way it impacts people like us that can weather the storm, but for working musicians, it's a real drag, and very life changing for people in a bad way.
Definitely. I think to myself, well, speaking of the punk rock underground and everything, one thing is all the big bands and all the big festivals that we all miss, but the small and medium-sized bands that were perhaps just about to have a big breakthrough into the mainstream or something. I mean, I can count several Scandinavian rock bands that was just about to make it, and then this thing happened, and oof, that's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
But
no one knows where that's going.
If I ever meet Jesper drummer, I will definitely tell him you said hi.
Awesome. Yeah, take care, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, take care, and thank you very much.